the fear of the unknown. One of the most fundamental parts of the human experience, this fear is something that follows everyone. It can protect us from dangerous situations, but it can also prevent innovation. So when something happened that went against everything that should be possible in a Mario Kart game, the only thing that crossed most players' minds was to hope that it would never happen to them. On December 23rd, 2011, Stelzig posted a video to YouTube of a respawn glitch on DK Jungle. Now, although Mario Kart 7 was only 3 weeks old, this wasn't actually too surprising in and of itself. You see, several respawn glitches had already been discovered in the game, with one of them being on DK Jungle. But Stelzig's video was a bit different, because while all of the other respawn glitches saved time, Stelzig actually lost time. His video showed him driving the first corner normally, but then while going around the second corner, he just respawned. As far as anyone could tell, there was no reason for him to respawn when he did, and although few people saw his original video, those who did were just as perplexed as he was. Over the next couple of years, more and more players started to experience this glitch across several tracks. All of these respawns were seemingly unexplainable, as they had happened in places that they shouldn't have. But thankfully, the glitch seemed to be quite rare. Very few people knew of the glitch's existence, and those who didn't really think much of it. Sure, it was strange, and of course nobody wanted it to happen to them, but for many, it was just another example to prove that Mario Kart 7 had been rushed in development. But perhaps players were a little naive to think so little of it, because as I mentioned earlier, this wasn't the only respawn glitch in the game. And on January 31st, 2014, Pomu uploaded a video which shocked the entire community. This video changed everything. Suddenly, random respawns weren't just a strange glitch that would lose time, they could be an actual strategy. So what actually is a random respawn? Well, for a long time, nobody knew anything about them. But in 2019, CF made a discovery which made it a little bit clearer. This is a map of all of the checkpoints on Mario Circuit. Each checkpoint is a zone that extends from one line to the next, and one of the things that these checkpoints are responsible for is telling the game where to place you back onto the track if you fall off. What CF had realized was that every single random respawn had occurred at the point where one checkpoint ends and the next one begins. Because of this discovery, we were able to theorize that the reason that a random respawn happened was because of tiny gaps between the checkpoints. You see, Mario Kart 7 runs at 60 frames per second, which means that approximately every 16 milliseconds, your kart teleports forwards. Because of this, unless the exact same inputs were performed every time, it's very unlikely that you will ever end up in the same position more than once, with the likelihood of a random respawn occurring being 1 in 22 million. But for the Mario Circuit glitch to save time, a random respawn would have to happen between any of these checkpoints, and it would also have to happen on lap 3. This makes the odds even more extreme, being 1 in 821 million. And to take that a step further, the odds of getting the fastest version of the glitch were just 1 in 6.5 billion. Those odds pretty much mean that getting a random respawn on Mario Circuit will never happen in a world record. But that isn't the end of the story, because even though the odds of a random respawn happening in the castle were astronomical, the fact that there was a video of it happening at all meant that ever since 2014, players knew that all that had to happen for a respawn glitch to be found was to find a way to respawn inside the castle. But even with that knowledge, it was much easier said than done. You see, as far as anyone could tell, it was impossible to fall off the track while inside the castle. The spiral had walls preventing players from falling off, and there was also a very tall invisible wall which extended outwards above the railing. Because of this, although many ideas were thrown around for how to get out of bounds, it took 8 years until there was an idea that actually had any potential. One of the most common ways that players had tried to get out of bounds in the past was to use the walls at the entrance to the castle to try and jump over the railing at the side of the spiral. The problem was, the idea didn't give nearly enough height, and was nowhere near getting over the invisible wall. But in June of 2022, 8W figured out a way to make it actually have a chance. It turns out that by hitting the star on the railing and then falling back down onto the ledge, you were able to get a way steeper angle than was otherwise possible. Although the use of a mushroom meant that the idea could never be faster for the 3-lap category, even if the glitch would only be useful for the single lap category, it would still be a massive discovery. But after trying for a while, although he had been able to get a couple of close attempts, it still seemed to be just out of reach, and so 8W stopped trying. But a few months later, in October of 2022, something happened which caused me to become interested in the track. While messing around on Makawoohoo, I stumbled across an idea that was very similar to the idea on Mario Circuit. By hitting the edge of the finish line, and then falling onto the ledge below, it was possible to get a massive amount of height. Unfortunately, the invisible wall on Makawoohoo ended up being far too high, but I realised the potential that this idea had, and decided to try it out on other tracks. And on October 8th, 2022, I revealed this glitch to the world. Although it never resulted in a world record, Mario Circuit's random respawn is still an extremely important part of Mario Kart 7's history. And even though it hasn't happened yet, and even though the odds are completely against it, who knows what might happen in the future.